PTB Nation, welcome back to a great episode of the one and only PTB Podcast. I'm your host, JT Rosero, coming at you from the PTBN studios here on this fine Monday. Joining me, as always, my PIC, Mr. Scott Criscolo. Scott, how are you?
Good evening, JR. Good evening, everyone at PTB, friends and family. Welcome to 640 of the longest-running episodic with a fucking gold standard, and a historic episode tonight. Not just a Raw going on, but of here at the PTB Podcast. Only maybe like the third time officially in PTB Network history, we're actually changing the format up a little bit. Actually, not a little bit, kind of a lot, actually. Jay, let everyone in. First of all, it's good to see you. It's good to see you last weekend at our usual Thanksgiving fun and games. We watched Survivor Series. Not much happens, kind of boring. But the most exciting thing was the Florida State quarterback getting drilled by two Florida cornerbacks. Let everyone in on what we'll be doing this evening and why this beautiful gentleman is right below us.
Yeah, we have a few different things going on tonight. So going forward with our new format, we've decided to simulcast this podcast, both audio and video. So audio will be where it's always been, the PTB Nation wrestling feed. The video will be on the North-South Connection podcast video feed on YouTube. And I believe you're going to probably throw it up on the PTB podcast video feed on YouTube as well. So it'll be a few different places that you can check it out. But it will be now in video form. So if you want to watch, feel free. If you want to listen, of course, as you always have, that's cool too. And like we talked about our last episode, we are changing things up. We're hopping out of the Vintage Vault review timeline. We made it to WrestleMania 26, which, I mean, if you would have said way back when in 2011, when we started in 1985, that we'd not only do 1985 to 2010, that we'd also do 1985 to 92 twice with a whole lot of special bonus content, you'd say we're probably crazy. But we did all that, and we just thought it was time to mix it up. And I don't know, maybe this will be good, maybe it'll fail. Who the hell knows? But for now, we'll give it a go. We'll try something different, and we can always pivot back if needed, right? Who cares? No. But for now, we're going to do a concept called Making Towns. We're going to have a different guest every episode. That guest is going to pick a wrestling town near and dear to them. And with that, they'll also pick a match that occurred in that town. We're going to live watch the match together. We'll talk about it. We'll also give the kind of the history of that town. And we're not going to lose our vintage throwback section either, Scott. So we're going to go back to that week in history that's chosen. We're going to talk old sports stuff, old pop culture stuff, like we have been doing all this time. So no concerns there for anyone, of course. So we'll go ahead. We thought this was a very fitting initial guest for our reboot. He, of course, is the original PTB historian. He is my co-host on Wrestling Warzone, one of the purveyors of the North-South Connection, and that is Mr. Chad Campbell. Chad, how are you?
Doing good. How's it going? Really missed an opportunity. I should have picked one of the Undertaker versus Kane matches from the fall of 2010. As my match.
We already know Keith Langston is banned from PTB because he's already threatened to pick a 2010 match. So
of course.
He's out. All right, Chad. So why don't you tell us the match in town you picked? Tell us why, and then we'll head back in time and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so pretty predictable choice, I'd say, out of the gate for me. I picked Atlanta, Georgia. I think it's obviously a town that has a lot of rich history, but I think it's an interesting town from a place to be podcast perspective because it's not a town that has been mentioned very often. Honestly, like through what you guys have covered. There had only been 4 pay-per-views if you include Armageddon 2004 in Duluth. So you know, not a ton of pay-per-views on the WWE side. Still from 1985 to 2010, and where we're talking on our podcast, Justin, it's also not very prominent yet. We're coming up on the last Nitro in the Omni. But then they take a pretty good break till January 1998, and it's fairly sporadic in the Georgia Dome since then. It'll be 2 in 98, 2 in 99. Then they go back to Phillips Arena. So it's just an interesting town. Of course, it's my hometown. It's near and dear to me, so it felt like a natural pick.
It's also
And
funny
how about the
because
match? Oh,
yeah,
that's
and
fine.
it's a great match. No, I was gonna say, and you were talking about history, Chad. It's only 4 shows, and that includes not only that Armageddon 04, but that December to December 06, if you count that too. And then they didn't. And then what? Rumble 02.
Yeah,
and
Rumble 02, Backlash 07.
07, and then we didn't get. Well, we did get to it. I think Rumble 10, right?
Yeah, Royal Rumble
10.
20.
So we got five Georgia shows in the time we were there, and that includes Duluth and wherever the heck Augusta. I think that was
Yeah.
December,
So I mean, that's like an hour and a half, 2 hours away.
no, it's not even like, all right. So, but no, it was a good pick, as you can see, repping Mr. Aaron's hat tonight, not George, Hank, and I'm excited. I'm glad this is a good pick. Those early '90s Starrcades are always good, and obviously you picked probably WCW's like premier feud at the time, while Flair was in the WWF, because Vader and Sting would have many matches over that like 92, 93 run, even into early 94.
Yeah,
before Hogan comes in. So it's a good pick. Good pick.
Yeah, so I picked Sting versus Vader from Starrcade 1992. The reason I picked that match, one, it's just a great match. Two, I think Starrcade 1992 is an interesting kind of point in time for WCW's history, where Bischoff has taken control. As I mentioned, with the town of Atlanta overall, like he didn't want to kind of have it shoehorned in that regionalism aspect, with WCW being married to Atlanta, kind of like how WWF's married to New York in some degree.
Right.
So this is the last Starrcade in Atlanta. And really this match is one of my, like, if you think about like the matches that I kind of regret not going at this, I was 6 years old when this event happened. I was mainly a WWF fan, but was, cognizant of WCW at this point, liked Sting a lot. And this is just a show that never kind of entered my periphery as an option to go to, not one I asked my parents or anything like that. I wasn't watching WCW pay-per-views. My guy from the church that I've talked about that taped all the WWF pay-per-views on his black box, he was very sporadic with the WCW pay-per-views for some reason. So I had a couple here and there, Halloween Havoc 1991 and Beach Blast 92 of all things. But didn't watch this one till later, and I think this is kind of a forgotten in that Sting Vader trilogy of 92, 93, their kind of historic trilogy, where you remember the strap match for the violence at Super Brawl, you remember the Great American Bash match because of the ending with the heel winning, clean, just didn't happen in one of the big promotions around that time and era. But this is a forgotten match, and I in some ways I think this is one of the better matches. We'll watch it again, but it's definitely a match where every time I watched it, it's kind of held up, and it's like, oh yeah, like this is a fabulous match altogether. But yeah, just I wish I'd have been there live. If I'd been there live, it's possible it'd have been the best match I'd ever seen live, and it's kind of one of those what ifs, great regrets. Like I mean, great. Like I would have loved to have been at the Omni for the first War Games, but I was a year old, so I didn't. My dad wasn't a huge wrestling fan. Like there's just no way. I'd honestly say this one and WrestleMania 24 of all things, the Flair versus Shawn match are kind of the two regrets that, I mean, that was in Orlando. I could have drove down, could have done that and just didn't. So those are kind of the two matches where it's like I had the means and probably availability to do it and just wasn't there live.
Mine was definitely WrestleMania 10. I mean, nowadays that would have been a no-brainer in MSG Mania, right? But like at the time, being 13, like it seemed like a crazy ask. But I mean, that was the first WrestleMania that I've been close since I've been watching. And speaking
mine's probably WrestleMania. Mine's probably WrestleMania 11 because it was in Hartford, but I was a senior in college and didn't have a pot to piss in. And probably Actually, probably the biggest one for me, just based on the quality and where it was, is probably SummerSlam 02. I mean, D'Amato's backyard, and I mean with Sean Triple H. I don't know why that one will always haunt me. That I should have been there. We all have those kind of shows, you know.
Yeah. So I was watching WCW at this time. Like I remember this tournament well. I remember like the show well.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting time frame, right? Because Vader has a pretty big night and then a pretty big title change. Like what? A couple days after this or the week after, right? He wins a belt back from Ron Simmons to head into 93 as champion. So it's an interesting time in WCW. What did you think of them doing like the Battle Bowl concept for Starrcade during these couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of that. I think from 1989 when they did the Iron Man whatever challenge, and then with the Battle Bowl concept, they had a few years where they just tried these wacky concepts for Starrcade, and it felt definitely too gimmicky for their kind of premiere show. 90s has the tag tournament and then the Black Scorpion stuff. So I think in general, the 89, 90, 91, 92 stretch.
And then even 95
they do shows. Yeah,
they
95
do the Japan
concept show too. It's rough. Like there's 92 with this match and 93 with Flair Vader. There's two like amazing matches stuck in that era, but the show we just talked about, 96, kind of felt like a return to form for the show as a whole, to like the glory days of 85 and 86 as far as Starrcades are concerned.
All right, so we know the match, we know the town now. So we're gonna head back in time, December 28th, 1992. We're going to talk about what was going on in the world of wrestling. We'll do some pop culture talk as well, and then we'll come back, talk about Atlanta a little bit more before we get to the match. So, Scott, what was happening? Any house shows or other televised events this week in 92 or this day in 92?
There indeed was. It was the last day of shows in 1992 for, obviously, I'll do WWF because WCW obviously had Starrcade, so there's no other shows for them. The WWF actually had 3 house shows. They had 3 loops going Christmas week of 1992. So there's 3, and they were in our neck of the woods, JR, up here. House show number 1, you guys could gauge on which ones were better or worse. So this one is from the Veterans Memorial Armory in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Oh, boy.
Here is, Fall River. Here's your card. Double Trouble defeated Phil Apollo and Scott Taylor, who was subbing for Mark Thomas. Mark Thomas is that fucking jacked up jobber from, and he would stick around till like, I feel like he was there till like 94, Mark Thomas. Tiger Jackson versus Little Mickey Moses. So we're still getting midget matches in the early 90s.
Little Mickey Moses.
Little Mickey Moses. Hacksaw Jim Duggan against the Berserker. Marty Jannetty and our Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels. So that feud, of course, was already bubbling up as we were heading into 93. And the main event was the Macho Man Randy Savage and Razor Ramon, because that feud, of course, was pushing hard as well. The second house show was at the Convention Center in Niagara Falls, New York. Your card, Terry Taylor against Question Mark, who our good friend Landy and Graham over on historywwe.com does not have an opponent, but they were subbing for Max Moon. So Skinner against Jim Powers, Lance Cassidy against Repo Man. The Big Boss Man took on another Question Mark. He was subbing for Nails, who clearly at this point had been fired. So the Head Shrinkers took on High Energy, Owen Hart and Coco Beware. Our World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions were, of course, Money Inc., Ted DiBiase and IRS. They were taking on the Nasty Boys. And your main event, World Wrestling Federation Champion, the Hitman Bret Hart, against the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. They were doing big, good matches, apparently, all very long, 20-something. In fact, I think, guys, I feel like they did some, like, mini, like, Ironmans, like, 30-minute matches. I feel like they were doing a house show loop, the two of them.
Well, so there's a lot of handhelds actually of them too in late 92 and early 93. So their first kind of loop around was just regular, like 20, 25-minute matches, all very good. The Ironmans are 60-minute Ironmans. The one that's kind of infamous is the one from Boston, the Boston Garden. I think that's January 9th, around there on the date. It's right before the first Raw. So.
Right. So yeah, no, it's one of the they had a good run going before, of course, Flair left. The final house show on the loop is from a place I had never been to before until just this past September, the Westchester County Center in White Plains, which of course was a big haunt for WWF back in the day. Here's the card. It tells you how big this roster was, because I don't think there's any repeats. There's no repeats on any of these three shows. So it tells you how big the roster was at the end of 92. So yeah, Bam Bam Bigelow defeated Virgil. Beverly Brothers defeated the Bushwhackers. In a match pulled right out of 1986, Tito Santana defeated Iron Mike Sharp. I forgot Iron Mike Sharp was still there.
Jesus.
My God. Pulled that right out of one of our MSG house shows, JR. Tatanka defeated Damian Demento. Yeah. I didn't realize Damian Demento was there in 92. I thought he wasn't there till, well, I guess he was in the main event in 93.
No, I think he debuted in I think it was September.
Bob Backlund defeated Rick Martel, which was probably a pretty good match. And then the main event was The Undertaker defeated Papa Shango. So your three main events on these three house shows were Randy Savage versus Razor Ramon, Bret Hart versus Ric Flair, and Undertaker versus Papa Shango. I don't know. Probably takes Niagara Falls, I guess, Bret and Flair. Although Savage Razor probably was pretty
good.
good.
The Fall River show sounded okay. I'm surprised. It sounds like the best card was in the worst town. I'm surprised they put that dog shit in Westchester. But yeah, probably that first card. But Bret Flair is probably the best match of all of them.
Yeah, the Fall River show had the two best, I think, matches on top combined.
Yeah,
you had the Marty Sean stuff and then Macho Razor. I mean, I would assume, the best match from a quality standpoint was Flair Bret. One thing I will say about their match, I've always been high on them together in the ring, but yeah, by this point you didn't expect Flair to win, so
right.
Some of the heat on that isn't amazing.
Yeah, he's fading by that point too. I went to a house show. I think it might be even after the Raw match. I think it's around the Rumble, and it's him in Perfect, and you could tell there's just no gas in the tank for Flair in the WWF. It was completely obvious he was gone.
Yeah.
All right. Any other house show stuff?
No, that's it. That was the three. Obviously ECW was in its infancy in 92. There's not much there, and I don't think Smoky Mountain had start, right? Smoky Mountain didn't start yet, right, Chad? 92?
No, it was going. I don't know if they ran that day.
Yeah, I'll take a peek. I didn't even think to look, but because I thought they started in 93. But let me check real quick while we're chatting here. Let me go to the history of WWE.com. Let me go to RO TNA. Yeah, the rest of these are all later. Let me see. Smoky Mountain had. They started in 91. I feel like for some reason I keep thinking they started
the first tapings in late 91. Their first TV show air dates February 1st, 92.
Gotcha. Actually, no. The last show of the year was the day before, December 27th, at the Raleigh County Armory in Beckley, West Virginia. The main event was the Rock and Roll Express against Stan Lane, Tom Pritchard, and Cornette in that match.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So yeah, there was no show. The last show was the day before. So that's it for house shows, JR. On this date, December 28th, 1992.
Okay, I do have a few editions of the Herb Kunze tidbits from December 92 at the weekend.
Oh boy,
there we go. Here, this first edition is from December 3rd. WCW Starrcade on the 28th from the Omni. Matches are Masachono versus KJ Muto for the NWA title. Ron Simmons versus Rick Rude for the WCW title. Sting versus Vader in the King of Cable tourney. Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas versus Barry Windham and Brian Pillman for the tag team titles. Second annual Battle Bowl with 8 teams to be drawn live. The only announced match is Cactus Jack and Johnny B. Bad against Dan Spivey and Van Hammer. he runs through the rest of the Battle Bowl participants. And that's that. There's also talk that the Honky Tonk Man has appeared at the most recent TV tapings. Since Center Stage regulars didn't go this week, I guess we'll have to wait to see if that really happened on Saturday. Talk is that he debuted as a heel manager with Michael Hayes. Obviously, thankfully, not the case. Arn Anderson blew out his knee prior to the match that aired this past weekend on Saturday night. I wonder if they'll say now that Eric Watts' STF is so devastating that it injured the enforcer. Dirty F has its annual Royal Rumble on January 24th from Sacramento. No lineup yet. Earthquake John Tenta will finish after that show and head to All Japan. TV tapings will be the next 2 days in San Jose and Fresno, and a Clash on January 13th from Milwaukee. Any quick thoughts on that batch before we head to December 10th?
I'm just waiting for it to load. I actually have a Muda. I think I saw this on one of your lists, Chad. I have a Muda Chono match on my GWCW top 100 match list. I think I had it at 10. I think it was from, for some reason, Google Sheets is taking forever. But I think it was from like early 93. I don't know if it was like
it's the one from January 4th, 1993 at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, that's one I have.
And then they aired it, in America in March.
I had that match on my list.
New Japan Super Show.
Yeah, I had that match on my list at number 10 because the match.
I mean, those two guys together, just real quickly, they're kind of a little perplexing with their chemistry because they have an absolute amazing match in 1991 on the final night of the G1 Climax, and then that match in 1993 is great too. And they got a couple other matches that are great, and then they have some like the one at Starrcade that's blah and disappointing too. They're kind of like
let's go on.
And Triple H in that regard, like they got classic matches, and then they got some that are just like, oh boy,
rough.
Yeah. One too many matches. Yeah.
All right, December 10th, 92, he runs down Starrcade again, same stuff. The feud between Tex Slazenger, Shanghai Pierce, and Tom Zenk and Johnny Gunn begins this weekend on Saturday night. The Texans try and put a dress on Zenk. The advertised Rhodes versus Wyndham match does not take place. Royal Rumble on January 24th from Sacramento. Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon for the WWF title. The 30-man Royal Rumble, including Jerry Lawler, that youngster Carlos Colon, and El Gigante as new talent. Tenryu will also appear at the Rumble, but it's unclear whether he'll participate or have a singles match. Earthquake John Tenta finishes as well. Goes to All Japan. And there's talk that Jerry Lawler will stay with the WWF for a while. You think? Fucking being there forever. So Kamala's face turn will happen before the Rumble. There's talk that after he turns, he's going to form a team with The Undertaker. Further rumor has him taking on Kimchi and Harvey Whippleman and crushing them to end their WWF careers. The Steiners will join the WWF in January after the final date at New Japan on January 4th, 93 against Kensuke Sasaki and Road Warrior Hawk. They have been released from their WCW contracts. WCW and New Japan have their third annual Super Show from the Tokyo Dome on January 4th. Masa Chono versus Great Muta for the NWA IWGP titles. Ron Simmons versus Tony Halm for the WCW title. Riki Choshu versus Tenryu. The Steiners versus Kensuke Sasaki and Road Warrior Hawk. Jushin Riger and El Ultimo Dragon for the IWGP Junior title. Norio Onaga, Super Strong Machine, and Tatsutoshi Goto and Hiro Saito versus Kengo Kimura, Shiro Koshinaka, Akitoshi Saito, and Kabuki. There'll be matches involving Sting, Rick Rude, Dustin Rhodes, and one other WCW wrestler. Clash on January 13th, Super Brawl on the 27th from Asheville. WrestleMania will take place on April 4th from Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Promo tape includes some footage of Hulk Hogan, and rumor has him appearing but not wrestling, perhaps doing commentary. The tentative main event is Bret Hart versus Yokozuna. Lex Luger will also be in the fold by this point. There's also a chance he'll be pushed straight to the top at this show. All right, any thoughts before we get to our final batch here from the 17th?
Good,
not a bad batting average, I guess, for Herb, all things considered. Undertaker and Kamala teaming up, I don't think ever came to pass. But
yeah, that's terrible. Oh my God,
definitely not.
Hogan on commentary. That's ugly.
Hogan doing commentary at WrestleMania 9. Yeah, that one didn't check out either.
Yeah, no, that one didn't make it either. But he had the main event at this point, which is pretty good. So.
Yeah. All right, December 17th, Starrcade runs down the card again. Shane Douglas and Rick Rude both suffered minor injuries on the weekend, but they're both expected to be fine for Starrcade. Dusty Rhodes' booking deal runs out in the near future. There's talk he'll take a walk, since there's no way he'll be kept at the same salary. Greg Gagne has also been brought in to work on the creative team. Royal Rumble on January 24th, Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon for the world title. The Royal Rumble winner gets a title shot at WrestleMania featuring Bob Backlund, Berserker, Carlos Colon, Crush, Damian Demento, Ted DiBiase, Jim Duggan, Earthquake, Headshrinker Fatu, Ric Flair, Owen Hart, Mr. Perfect, Jerry Lawler, Rick Martel, Nails, Nasty Boy Brian Knobbs, Repo Man, Jerry Sag, Samu, Tito Santana, Macho Man, Papa Shango, IRS, Tatanka, Tenru, Typhoon, Undertaker, Virgil, Koku Beware, and Yokozuna. Other matches have been reported as such. Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty for the IC title. Bam Bam Bigelow versus Big Boss Man, Max Moon versus Terry Taylor, Steiner Brothers versus the Beverly Brothers, and Undertaker versus Nails, an electric chair match. And that was rumored at the time. I don't know if it was going to happen until Nails got fired or not, but they were definitely teasing a feud between those two, even making the cover of the magazine. The last match, though, looks to be scrubbed if both guys are to be in the Rumble. Jerry Lawler will become a regular color commentator for Superstars or occasionally work big shows. Everybody's betting on either Mr. Perfect, and if you were live at our House of Survivor Series, Big Keith was part of that bet. Mr. Perfect or Yokozuna will win the Royal Rumble. There's a rumor that Bret Hart is slated to drop the strap to Ric Flair in February. I guess this goes hand in hand with Hennig winning the Rumble, giving us Flair versus Hennig main eventing WrestleMania. There's also talk that Lex Luger will get pushed to the top overnight once March arrives. So there's multiple scenarios with him involved. The more sedate rumors are Bret Hart giving the push as champion, with the next heel at bat being Yokozuna, who's already slated for a major push in house shows in January and February. The Steiners debuted this past Tuesday at a TV taping. WCW has let them out of the contracts early. We have the Super Show, pretty much the same card. Clash on January 13th. Super Brawl 227, WrestleMania in Vegas. Same notes about Hogan on that. So that's about it for Herb for this installment. Any final thoughts there?
Again, it seems like he was pretty in line, so pretty good for Herb.
I find it fun. I guess there weren't any real, and I guess we talked about this, JR, when we were doing the 92s. But I guess the rumors of Flair leaving were really not strong yet. If Herb was thinking that Flair was going to still be champion again in main event Mania with Perfect, which I would have totally paid for because that main event would have been awesome. But I like how Herb says the more sedate rumors is actually what happened.
Yes,
not the strong rumors.
Well, it is the most bland of those options. I mean,
yeah,
like Flair Perfect is probably a hotter feud and potential match. I don't know when the Flair stuff kicks in. I'm guessing it soon. Like if we keep reading these, I'm guessing by early January. I mean, he loses the Leaves Town match on Raw, the Raw taping the week before the Rumble, so it happens pretty fast in there.
Right.
But
yeah, and I mean, Luger debuts at the Rumble, and I mean, he doesn't get a mega push as Narcissist. I wish he did better than what he ended up getting. But I mean, he did have the pulse of Yoko as the number one contender, and I do remember the Taker nail stuff because that obviously none of us knew. I mean, we wouldn't know about the whole Vince and the
well, and they shot the angle on Superstars. Like they had the big stare down in the ring on Superstars that was on the cover of the magazine. I think that's January '93 magazine. They're on the cover, so it definitely seemed like they were prepping for something between those two guys. So I don't know if Giante was coming in anyway, or if they pivot to him and bring him in to take Nails' place against Taker once Nails is gone, or if they were bringing him in anyway and they just fast track that instead. I'm not sure, but unless he was going to interfere, maybe Taker Nails was going to end at the Rumble and then he was going to interfere. But all right, so that's it for the wrestling portion, Scott. So why don't we head back again to the week of December 27th, 92, and we're going to head into our vintage pop culture corner.
All right, let us begin. We'll go to, of course, we're gonna add some stuff, give you a little more meat on the pop culture corner, mostly in the sports department, and it's good tonight because Chad will be very interested in what we add. So, of course, we will begin with music, and we will go to Billboard's Hot 100 for the week ending December 20, or actually it's the week of January 2nd, 93, the end of that week. So number one was I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston, because the Bodyguard had been out, I believe. So unless it was coming out. No, it was out already. So that was still number one. 8 weeks on the chart, and its second week at number one. Rump Shaker by Rex and Effect at 2. Love that song. If I Ever Fall in Love by Shy at 3. In the Still of the Night, the cover by Boyz II Men at 4. Rhythm is a Dancer by Snap at 5. One of my favorite songs, I Do by PM Dawn from Boomerang. A lot of soundtrack songs in this countdown. At number 6, Saving Forever for You by Shanice at number 7. I think that's a 90210 song, I think, actually. Good Enough by Bobby Brown at 8. What About Your Friends by TLC at 9. And Real Love by Mary J. Blige at 10. So there's your top 10 for the week ending. Not terrible. A lot of
top half. Tapers a bit at the end there, but first 5
very,
or 6 are strong.
Very like R&B heavy.
Yes, definitely. And a lot of soundtracks. Speaking of soundtracks, we go from the radio to the big screen and take a look at movies that were out on this weekend. Of course, it was Christmas weekend, so we had some decent movies out at the end of 92. Let's go through the top 10. At number 10, Toys. That was a Fox movie. I'm trying to remember what that was about. Toys? Does that ring a bell, guys? I don't know. It's not hitting me. Toys. This was the week ending Christmas. I can't think of what Toys is, but at number 9, Leap of Faith.
Wasn't that it was Robin Williams.
I thought that was Babes in Toyland.
No, it looks like he's in Toys as well.
Okay. Number 9,
He a toy making company and begins making war toys. His employees band together to stop him before he ruins the name of the company forever.
Oh,
Wow.
Interesting. Number 9, Leap of Faith. This was a hot week for Eddie Murphy because he had 2 movies in the top 8. Or maybe no, just one. The other one bounced down. The Distinguished Gentleman at number 8. Maybe Boomerang hadn't come out yet because the soundtrack usually comes out first anyway. Distinguished Gentleman at number 8. Couple of openings on this weekend. Trespass was number 7. Hoffa with Jack Nicholson playing the legendary Teamsters leader who mysteriously was buried under Giant Stadium, and now it's technically a parking lot. At number 6. Number 5, Forever Young.
I believe even Chad pissed on Jimmy Hoffa's grave somewhere along the way at WrestleMania 29.
Nothing beats a good tailgate over a grave. Number 5, Forever Young. At number 4, The Bodyguard, as mentioned, because the song was in the countdown. At number 3, I think I consider an unheralded sequel in history, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a great sequel. I don't think it's talked about enough. I think it's a good sequel, though. At number 2,
I just watched it the other day. It still holds up pretty well.
I think it definitely does. I mean, I like the Pigeon Lady. It's not the same as the old man in the first one, but I kind of like that dynamic. It was pretty good. Aladdin at number 2, the original animated one. And at number 1, another Jack Nicholson had 2 movies. At number 1, A Few Good Men, which is probably one of Tom Cruise's best, one of Jack Nicholson's best, probably one of Kevin Bacon's best, a lot of everybody's best. Tremendous movie, A Few Good Men. So that was the top 10 Christmas weekend in 1992. So from there, we're actually going to add another new feature. We are going to do the TV schedule. We always talk about movies. Let's talk about what was on the small screen on this night. What was airing on a Sunday night, because this was a Sunday night, I believe, in 1992. So here's what was on Sunday in the 1992-93 TV schedule. At number on ABC, you had Life Goes On. You had America's Funniest Home Videos at 8 o'clock. 8:30, this is prime time. 8:30 was America's Funniest People. And then you had the ABC Sunday Movie. They were still doing that in the 90s? Wow.
Yeah.
On
CBS, for a while, I think.
Yeah. On CBS, it's pretty much what you would get when the 4 o'clock NFC game ended from Candlestick or Anaheim. You had 60 Minutes at 7. Then after that, you had Murder, She Wrote, as Pat Summerall used to do. And then the CBS Sunday Movie. So on NBC, you had Secret Service, you had Eyewitness Video, and then the NBC Sunday Movie. This was probably the network that won on this night, because the one network that did not have a movie on was Fox. And here was their lineup starting at 7 o'clock. You had Great Scott. You had the Ben Stiller Show. At 8 o'clock, you had In Living Color. At 8:30, you had Rock. At 9, Married with Children. At 10, Herman's Head. At 9:30, you had Herman's Head. At 10, you had Flying Blind. And at 10:30, you had Whoops. For those wondering where the Simpsons are, I think they were on another night back then.
Is it Wednesday? Or I think it was Wednesday or Thursday.
Let's see. It was not Wednesday. Thursday. At that season, Simpsons was Thursday night at 8, because Wednesday nights at 8, of course, JR was 90210 was at 8 and Melrose Place was at 9. So that was Fox's other big night. And then, of course, during the week at 10 o'clock, Fox would actually go to news, because Fox was always, at least my Fox affiliate, had news at 10 o'clock before everybody else went to 11 o'clock. So that was what was on television on Sunday night in 1992. So now, sticking with television, it's a Sunday, which means we take the field.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So this is going to be a little different for you, JR, than in the past, because in the past, when we did our vintage vaults, you were clued in on the season, because we were doing the same NFL season. Well, now every week or every episode, we're going to be bouncing all over the place. You're going to have to be on your game. So tonight, it is week 17, the final regular season week of the 1992 season. Of course, the defending world champions were Washington, but they were still in the playoff hunt, I think. So here's the last week of the season. So, gentlemen, here we go. There were 2 games on. So this was a Sunday. So actually, Starrcade took place on a Monday, not a Sunday. It was actually a Monday. Okay. So it was a Monday night. So, but Monday night, same kind of programming on television. So here we go. So there were 2 games on Saturday. We'll begin at Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, where the JETS Jets hosted the New Orleans Saints. JR.
Late 92 Jets. I'll go with the Jets. I'll take the Jets here.
All right. Chad?
Saints.
It doesn't matter what happened in the 90s with the Jets. Always ended the same. Saints 20, Jets 0.
Oh, Jesus.
The other game was at RFK Stadium, where Washington hosted the Los Angeles Raiders, Chad.
I'll go Commanders.
I'll take the Hogs.
Yeah, the Command Skins, the Red Manders. They lost. Raiders win by a point, 21-20. All right, let's go to the Sunday games. We'll start at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, where the Bengals hosted the Indianapolis Colts, JR.
All right, I'll take the Bengals here.
Okay, Chad?
Bengals at home, I guess. No clue.
Yeah, Jack Trudeau was quarterbacking the Colts. He threw for 183 yards. Colts actually won 21-17. This was the year after they had the number 1 pick.
So yeah, it's the end of the season. You got to throw everything out. It's all these garbage guys playing and everything else.
Yeah. I mean, this was the year after they had the number 1 pick and took Steve Entman, and we all know what happened to him. And they had the 2nd pick. It took Quentin Coriat, and they both fell off the face of the earth. Next, we go to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. The Chefs hosting the Denver Broncos. JR. Oh, Chad.
Oh, I'll go Chiefs at home.
Chiefs at home.
Chiefs win big, actually, 42-20. This was like the soft, kind of deep stretch for Denver, where they were kind of good but not good enough anymore, kind of thing. It's when, of course, Buffalo is the class of the AFC. Next, we go to the Metrodome in Minneapolis. The Vikings host the Green Bay Packers. JR.
I'll take the Vikings.
Chad?
Yeah, I'll go Vikings.
Sean Salisbury threw for 292 yards. I think this was Favre's first season in in Green Bay.
So.
That's what I was wondering, if he came on the scene yet.
I think he was, right? I think your Falcons traded him at that point. So Vikings won 27-7. Next we go to I wonder if it's at this point I think it's Foxborough Stadium. I don't think it's Gillette Stadium anymore, but obviously not Gillette, Sullivan Stadium.
Yeah.
But they were still in the old dump. The Patriots hosting the Miami Dolphins, Chad.
Dolphins.
Jer.
Miami.
This was, of course, the year that the Pats would get the number 1 pick because they would draft Mr. Bledsoe the following spring. Dolphins win in overtime, 16-13. We go to Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. The Eagles hosting the New York Giants, Chad. No, JR. Sorry, JR.
I'll take the Eagles.
Okay, Chad.
I'll be different. I'll go Giants.
All right, well, Jeff Hostetler threw for a couple hundred yards, but this was the peak of Reggie's Minister of Defense run for that, the Jerome Browns and the Seth Joyners. Eagles win 20-10. We go to Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh. The Steelers hosting the Cleveland Browns, Chad.
Steelers.
Jer.
Yeah, I'll go Pittsburgh.
Bubby Brister threw for 223. Barry Foster, who helped win me a fantasy league title the following year, rushed for 103 yards. Steelers win 23-13.
Scott played fantasy in 1993.
I did, and won. Yes, very easy. Let's go to Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe. The Phoenix Cardinals hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. JR.
I will take the Cardinals.
Okay, Chad.
Cardinals, I guess. That sounds like a brutal game.
Guess what? It was a terribly brutal game. Bucs 7, Cardinals 3. Quite brutal.
Yes.
Quite brutal. We go to the Hole in the Roof, Texas Stadium in Irving, the Cowboys and the Chicago Bears. Chad.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
Right. Emmett won the rushing title on this day. Emmett with 131 yards. Troy had the day off, but the Cowboys win 27-14. They went 13-3 that year. Let us go to Anaheim Stadium, where the Rams hosting the Atlanta Falcons. JR.
Oh, man. So really test Chad's 6-year-old knowledge. All right, I'll go with the Rams.
Okay, Chad.
Yeah, I don't recall the Falcons being very good this year. I think Glanville was on the scene, but I'm gonna go with the Rams too.
I'm assuming that Chris Miller was hurt. Wade Wilson was starting for the Falcons on this day. He threw for 374 yards, but the Rams won 38-27.
Oh wow!
Yeah. We go to the King.
He did.
Okay. I think you both said Rams. Right. We go to the Kingdome in Seattle. The Seahawks host the San Diego Chargers. Chad.
Ooh, another one different. I'll go Seahawks at home.
Okay, Chad. Jer.
I'll take the Chargers.
Stan Gelbaugh was the quarterback for the Seahawks, and that should tell you all you need to know. Chargers 31, Seahawks 14. We go to good game. This must have been. I wonder if this was a Sunday night game. Were they doing Sunday nights in the early 90s? Yeah, I guess they were. We go to the Astrodome in Houston. Pretty good matchup here. The Houston Oilers hosting the Buffalo Bills. JR.
I'll take the Bills. But yeah, that's a shootout right there.
Yeah. Chad?
I'll go Oilers.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Cody Carlson started for the Oilers, but Buffalo probably had everything wrapped up because probably nobody played, although Thurman Thomas rushed for 97 yards. But the Oilers won convincingly, 27-3. So I'm guessing all the starters took the day off because Bills probably
for both teams. Maybe both teams were in.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was the following
year
week
they play, isn't it?
Comeback game, right? I think the following week was the comeback game.
Right.
And then Monday night, the night of our match tonight, from Candlestick Park, San Francisco 49ers host the Detroit Lions. Chad.
49ers.
Yeah, I'll take the Niners.
Steve Young throws for 153, and the Niners win 24-6.
All right, it's a 9-9 tie to start this new era. So there you go.
There you go. Yep, that was not a surprise with two, even with Chad at 6 years old. Yeah,
week 17's tough too, man. Because
Yeah, there's a lot thrown in there. All right,
Yeah,
Scott, I know you got to cavalcade a bucket of things, but we're trying to keep our format these days. So why don't you pick one of your remaining items for us as a treat, and then we'll dive into our match here tonight.
Okay. Yeah. Let us do that. All right. Why don't we? There's no 90210. There's no 90210 this week. With Chad here, why don't we do some college football? We're going to do college football from here on out too. So let's see. Well, this is a quickie. There was only one bowl game. There was a bowl game on this night. It was the Aloha Bowl, and Kansas beat number 25 BYU 23.
Is this Minnesota State Screaming Eagles at the Aloha Bowl year?
Is that all right?
Might be.
I don't know. I don't know what the 92 Georgia Bulldogs were doing. Who was head coach?
It was Goff.
Goff. Yes.
They were good.
Yeah.
They were like 10-2, I think, that year. But 92 is when Alabama won the national championship.
Yes, they did when they had Gino Toretto was at Miami. That was what the heck was his name? The running back. Oh, I can't remember his name. The running back for Bama. I think the Cowboys drafted him actually. I can't remember his name. But he had a good game in that Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, Georgia. I was just looking. I thought their games were very close. This kind of shows you like the old school schedule, how everything went.
Mm-hmm.
So Georgia did go. They went 10-2. They lost to Tennessee, who was really starting to come up, 31-34, and then they lost to Florida, of course, with Spurrier, 24-26. So they lost 2 games the whole year by a combined 5 points.
Yeah.
That's the way it went. There
you go.
They beat Ohio State in the bowl game. So there you go. The more things change.
The more exactly. There were some NBA games on that day. The Hawks lost. This wasn't the expansion year for the Hornet. No, this was one of the better years. They won.
No, they were like 88, I think.
Yeah, and I think this was the first big year.
92-93. This is the year they beat the Celtics in the playoffs.
This is the year they beat the Celtics. Yeah, this is when they had Grandmama and Zoe. Yeah, this is a good team. A few hockey games, nothing crazy. Oh, actually, no hockey games on that night. There was some college basketball, but there was no episode of 90210 that week. Of course, this was season 3, which is my personal favorite season. And but they were on
soon on 90210 NoSo.
Yes,
our 90210 podcast. Me and Tim Cable.
Yes. Very excited.
Which you both will be on very soon. So go.
Yes. So there we go.
Right,
that's corner.
Yeah, let's fast forward back to December 28th, 1992. We have some fun facts here about the wrestling in the city of Atlanta, plus the build to this match, courtesy of our buddy Steve Riddle. So the state of Georgia was home to one of the more prominent territories. Georgia Championship Wrestling began airing on WTBS in 1972. In 1984, Georgia Championship Wrestling was infamously sold to WWF with the first show under the banner, airing on July 14th, 1984. Of course, would go down in infamy as Black Saturday. Unhappy with the lack of quality of the show, Turner backed the sale of Georgia from WWF to Jim Crockett in spring of 85. Vince McMahon would then use that money to finance the first WrestleMania. Atlanta played a host a total of 5 NWA WCW pay-per-views: Starrcade 85, 86, 89, 92, and Slamboree 1993. It was also a regular stop on the Great American Bash tours. It was also the site of the first ever War Games on July 4th, 87. Cities played host to 8 WWF pay-per-views. We talked to about a bunch of them earlier: Rumble 02, Rumble 10, Armageddon 04 in Duluth, Backlash 07, WrestleMania 27, Hell in a Cell 2012, Survivor Series 2015, and Day 1 2023. City also hosts one Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Chad, do you know which one?
One Ring of Honor pay-per-view?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It was Honor Takes Center Stage 2011. So there you go.
I don't know about that.
Probably wasn't a pay-per-view. Maybe it was just a...
Yeah, that was WrestleMania weekend. That was the first Ring of Honor shows. I went to both of those shows. Really good shows.
2 modern day NWA pay-per-views, Scott. Any idea?
In Atlanta? Well, they were supposed to do the 2020 Crockett Cup in Atlanta, or in a suburb of Georgia, but they bagged it, of course, because of the pandemic. Was it like the pop-up 2019? I think it was. Maybe that was Nashville.
It was Into the Fire 2019. and Hard Times 2020.
Yes, they were. It was in their studios. That's right. It was in their studios. Good shows, actually. Into the Fire was a good show, and Hard Times 2020 is when they brought back the TV title. NWA was good before the pandemic. Believe me, it was. And then just trying to catch up from there. But they were supposed to do the 2020 Crockett Cup. That was the big Marty Aldis $250,000 match, whatever the heck it was. But the pandemic squashed that. And they were supposed to be in some venue. It was supposed to seat like 5,000 people. I'm trying to remember where the venue was, but then they did the studio, and they're not there anymore. Now they're in Nashville. So,
all right. Impact is also held Against All Odds in 2021 and Hard to Kill 2023. Atlanta will be home of Saturday Night during the early 90s, taped at Center Stage Theater. And a little bit of build to this match. On October 31st, Saturday night, they announced a tournament called King of Cable. Finals happening at Starrcade to celebrate 20 years of TBS. And the winner would receive a trophy and display at CNN Center. On November 7th, Rick Rude defeated Barry Windham. Sting beat Brian Pillman. The next week, Vader defeated Tony Atlas, and Dustin Rhodes defeated the Barbarian, who subbed for Jake the Snake Roberts. At the Clash 21, Sting defeated Rick Rude, and Vader defeated Dustin Rhodes on 11/21. And then on December 5th, Vader and Rude defeated Sting and Simmons. And a week later, both men cut promos as they're facing in the finals, and also will be competing in the Lethal Lottery as well. So big night for both men. We've go ahead and queued up the match. Again, it is Sting versus Big Van Vader from Starrcade 92. It is on Peacock. We are paused at 2:02:18, and we're going to hit play in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, Chad. Instant ranking. Sting's blue tights.
Yeah, these are some great tights. I think I do like the bright orange when he did the orange and
I like the bright orange too.
The teal blue. But this is a great look too. And then the All-American face paint and tight schemes that he had when he beat Flair at Bash 90. I mean, Sting's got a lot of cool attire. You can't knock him for that, because he did color schemes you didn't really see a whole lot either. Like when he had the longer hair and he was doing like the green and black and all that. Like it was, he definitely was versatile.
Now, their history before this. So Vader showed up for all intents and purposes when, like, late 91, right? I know he was around before that for a couple of
times. Like so Vader was around in late 91, but he was still kind of, it was a weird thing where he was contracted by New Japan still. So he was sort of doing a dual thing there. And then Sting had the first feud with Luger in late 91. And then when Luger for sure was going, you had the weird situation where he was announced for the title match at Super Brawl 2 on February 29th, 92. But Luger had already done all of his committed dates and whatnot. So he's not on TV at all. So that build is very funky, and Sting's dealing with the Dangerous Alliance at that point. But one thing in watching the TV between these two, and I think that you don't really realize unless you follow it closely, and it was tracked on 7 Months of Danger, is almost immediately after Sting won the title from Luger at Super Brawl, he does do like a kind of like a month around the loop versus Rude, where he did title matches. But there's a TV taping. It's like a Power Hour or some either Power Hour Worldwide, something like that. It's not on Saturday night. But Vader, this is right when he signed with WCW. He kind of comes out and attacks Sting and really beats him up. Sting gets hurt, and they put it over huge. They play it on all the shows. And this is in April, I want to say, early April. So from that point forward, and most of the remainder of the Dangerous Alliance stuff, Sting was married to Vader on like the house shows and stuff. So they really started ratcheting up the feud in April and would show the beatdown. And then, of course, they had the pay-per-view match at Great American Bash 92.
Yeah, and that's where Vader just crushes him to win the title. From there, pretty much just reigned as champion until Ron Simmons beat him. When was that?
Yeah, so Vader only holds the belt for a
quick,
short
right?
amount of time. Yeah, I believe Great American Bash 92 is July 12th, and then Simmons' world title win is early August. So it was presented as, kind of a fluke upset. And then Sting, after getting beat by Vader, Sting kind of peters off and has the stuff with Jake Roberts that leads into Halloween Havoc. So this kind of match itself is within the confines of King of Cable, but by this point in this feud, this felt like one of those matches that these guys were career rivals. So it did feel like, all right, you can match these two up at any point and they can go after it and have a great match.
Well, and then they do fight on pay-per-view again at Super Brawl for the world title. So the feud rolls on. And then even past that, because they do the tag stuff with the Masters of the Power Bomb and the British Bulldog and all that. So their feud does go on for a bit. And the chemistry is like on display immediately. I mean, my favorite part of their feud is the way Vader throws Sting around, but also the way Sting throws himself at Vader constantly. Like, he just uses himself as a projectile throughout the match a lot of the time, just flying into him. Flies into him with a clothesline. They both fly over the top, just hammers him with his own body with full reckless abandon.
Yeah. So according to the title history, so Vader won the title at the Bash from Sting. Then Ron Simmons won it on August 2nd on Main Event. It says, due to injury, Sting was unable to have a rematch with Vader. So a raffle was done to take Sting's place as the number one contender. Ron Simmons won the raffle. And with this win, WWE recognizes him as the first African-American to win a world title, and it aired on tape delay on the 16th. But it actually happened on the 2nd. And then he holds it till 2 days after this show when Vader beats him, and then Sting wins it. Sting actually wins it back at a house show in London.
Yeah, they do the London and then, I think Dublin or whatever.
Ireland, yep.
Yeah, because Vader has it through all 93. So they fight at Super Brawl again, but Sting doesn't win it back. Because Vader holds it until Flair, right, after this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you count the kind of Phantom house show stuff, but it's till Flair beats him at Starrcade 93.
Yeah, so for all intents and purposes, he has it for a full year leading up to that match.
Yep.
So, Chad, maybe you know that, or maybe maybe either you guys know this. So, am I assuming that Flair got kind of permission from Vince when his contract was up to be on camera but not wrestle for 90 days? Is that what the whole Flair for the gold? He comes out at Super Brawl, but he doesn't wrestle till what, July or June or whatever? Was that so? Vince said he could be on camera, he just can't wrestle. Was that? So. That seems like what it was, because he comes back literally 3 weeks after that Raw. Or whatever, maybe a month before.
He does more house shows in January too. Like I said, he's at that Providence one, so he finishes his commitments through the end of January into early February, and then I think he's literally on WCW TV the day he could be on. Pretty much appears.
Yeah.
Because I feel like once
his contract's up, he's kind of.
But I think there is some kind of active no compete because he doesn't wrestle for a while. Yep. Until you said, Scott, I think it's June. I think.
Yeah, I think I don't think he wrestles until. Yeah, well, I don't think he wrestles until him and Arn start the feud with the Blondes. Yeah. Till Austin and Pillman.
Yeah, I think
I think I have one of their matches on my top 100 too. Probably the Clash one, right? Was that the better one? I think it was. Mm-hmm. Right? I think it's a Clash one that's pretty good. I have a decent amount of Sting. Do I have this match on my list? I'll have to look.
I mean, it should be what I like about them too is they never go long. They go a supercharged 15 to 16 minutes that is just balls out the whole time.
Yeah.
And everyone overstays his welcome. As Sting comes out hot, Vader beats the piss out of him. Sting makes his comeback, and then either Sting pulls it out or Vader just wrecks him and wins the match. Except for that first one where he really just dominates him. Which was crazy at the time. But I mean, Vader is one guy WCW absolutely got right pretty much the entire time till the very end.
Let's see. So I have.
What
Yeah,
did
no,
you
I
think
have.
of the Harley Vader pairing, Chad?
I like Harley. You know, Harley still wanted to be in the ring as much as he took bumps. But I thought he was a good mouthpiece. I mean, I think Harley honestly is a little bit underrated overall, as like a mouthpiece for both Luger and Vader. You know, I mean, that's really the only two guys he champions. That you think. I mean, he had, you know, other here and there when
The
he brings in
Assassins.
Hercules or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. But you remember him with those two guys, and he was active and good. I don't think Vader's somebody that like needed a mouthpiece necessarily, but I thought
Right.
Grace worked good in the role.
Well, I feel like for Vader to have a mouthpiece, like the cornet thing works eventually where you have like the smarmy guy run his mouth, but having a grizzled old tough guy isn't, and they don't present it as a manager, right? It's more like he's just an advisor to this guy because he's been up and down the road, you know, been through the wars, and he's just like he's advising Vader. It's presented more that way versus it's like a Perfect and Flair
I was
scenario.
gonna say it's a good compliment to what was going on with, like, these are the two kind of like tough men advisor wrestlers, and Perfect and Flair are kind of like your, you know, playboy pretty boys, advisor. It's a nice contrast.
I actually had all three of their matches on my list.
Yeah, they're all awesome.
I have the Bash and I have Super Brawl. I have all three of them.
What's your ranking, Chad, of the three? I mean, we'll get to your grid on this match at the end, but
yeah, I usually have the Strap first, and then this one second, and the Great American Bash third.
Oh, really? You like Super Brawl the best, huh?
Yeah, I like the Strap match. I know it does have some like tropey strap things with the dragging around all three corners and the guy's not surprised, but the brutality in that one, like the welts on the backs of both men from the strap and stuff, it gets very visceral too. So that one goes there, but this match and the strap match are pretty close. I definitely have the Great American Bash match number 3. I still like it, and I mean it's still, you know, easily.
Well, that's like more of a squad. For the most
well,
part.
yeah, I mean it's played somewhat competitively, but I think the big thing that helps it is just in the finish is so definitive, where you know, Sting goes for a stinger splash, he bangs his head, and then it's like immediately like he's out, like he's done, power bomb, and that's it. And you didn't see that like where babyface. I'm trying to recall like on a national stage with either like AWA or Mid South or any time something like that happened with pretty much no chicanery at all. So
the only I can think was 10 years later with Eddie Guerrero and Rob Van Dam, where Eddie just dismantles him at Backlash and beats him clean. Like to me, but beyond that, that's not in this time frame. That's the first one that comes to mind where like a baby face just took a shit kicking and just got beat like without, you know, like a top level baby face. So
yeah,
I just watched that match actually. In fact, later this week on one of my watches, I'm actually going to watch the Judgment Day.
Their whole series is good. Both of the pay per view and the Raw matches, the ladder match is good too.
I'm trying to look and see which one of these three I actually
Vader's grinding away here. I obviously don't have the volume up too high, Chad. Was the crowd hot for this, or were they?
I would say this crowd is decent. It's I mean, 92 WCW in Atlanta was just, it's one of those things where like they ran center stage so much, so you had the oversaturation, and then I think it cannot be understated that for a lot of the fans, like by this point, 92 WCW is just, it's just not a product that they fell in love with seeing if they're long-term wrestling fans. Like if you're a long-term Georgia Championship Wrestling fan, Buzz Sawyer, Tommy Rich, and that era, or even earlier if you date back to the 70s. But yeah, I mean, really from like the early 80s, the onset of the Road Warriors, like the product has changed a lot. Like, I mean, even like, I mean, this match feels like a throwback to it, but I mean, just some of the stuff you were seeing with like Johnny B. Bad and all this stuff.
Right.
I mean, it was a different time, and you do see that where it's one of those things. I mean, that's where my fandom is right now. Like that's where it's relatable. Like with me in modern day, like WWE, like that's a hot product for a lot of fans now, and it's just something that like I didn't grow up with. It's different from what I really resonate with in wrestling, so it's just mostly
At
false
least the
flat.
difference now versus then is you have thousands and thousands of other stuff to watch, hours of other stuff to watch, old and
Yeah, I mean,
elsewhere. Back then in 1992, you were pretty limited.
well,
You know,
and you see that where 93 is such a historically terrible arena attendance wise for WCW. I mean, they get drawn by Smoky Mountain in a lot of venues, and I think that plays into it where Smoky Mountain did feel like that,
right.
80s feel, and they certainly played that up, like in the Smoky Mountain promos on the TV. It's like the wrestling you used to love, like that's literally what they said. So it was something they were cosmic of. Vader is just peppering Sting right here.
Sting calling for it was awesome. He was in the corner, like saying, "Bring it, bring it," because and it's almost a little bit of callback to their past stuff where Vader just pummeled him, and here he's like not dying. I mean, it's a little bit of Rocky Clubber Lang story with these two.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yep.
Where Sting comes back and he's kind of learned a little bit more how to hang in, and he's just taking the punches as we ramp down here.
It is very reminiscent because Vader looks like he's getting a little gassed. This match also reminds me a lot of I wasn't sure if you mentioned it a minute ago, but it's very reminiscent of what Brock and Cena would do at SummerSlam 2014, where Sting's probably because I always equate early 90s Sting to like anything Cena ever did, and it's very reminiscent. I mean, Sting doesn't mind being a little snug because I'm sure Vader didn't, Vader was going to do it. He didn't give a shit. But yeah, very reminiscent, and Sting, with the big comeback and I mean, he's pretty gassed too, but I think that's what his plan was. I think he was doing what Rocky did to Clubber. He was trying to
bait him in and wear him down.
Yeah.
Let him punch himself out. A little rope a dope.
I wonder if it's interesting that they were very comfortable with that Vader was very comfortable wrestling without his mask. Like it was no big thing, to take his, for him to wrestle maskless.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it wasn't really, wasn't hiding his identity much.
No, and I don't think that was the point. Yeah, you're right. I don't think it was the point either. It's not like, like fucking Ray or, Mil Mascaris or anything like that.
No, I mean, it was obvious.
I love early 90s Harley mullet. So great.
So, I mean, Vader's got Sting on the ropes here. He hits the big splash off the middle rope. Sting's definitely rattled.
Yeah, this is the infamous calling for the now either the moonsault or the big boy here. About to get
power
caught.
Slam, and that'll do it. Sting is our king of cable.
Just awesome kind of one of those where again, Sting was resourceful. He took a beating, so he is a baby face, looks resilient and strong. And Vader is a heel, loses nothing because he again dominated Sting. He made one of those mistakes. It's like one of those kind of moral victories. And then with the booking, they turn right around and he wins Battle Bowl too. So it's like it was brilliantly booked all around.
He wins the title as well. I mean, so it's
Yeah,
like
wins the
both
title
guys
2
have a
days
strong
later in a
career.
house show. They play it all on Saturday night. You know, when the first Saturday night of the year, it's like, oh, we got big news out of Baltimore, wherever it happened. We got a brand new champion. It's Vader. So
All right.
they knew what they were doing.
All right. Who's your? We have an MVP of this match. You going Sting or Vader?
I mean, in this feud, I think they're pretty equal, but I'll go Sting only because I think you expect that level of violence from Vader. With Sting, you just hadn't seen it in any feud until you got to this one. And I don't know if you see it much since either. It's like he's definitely stiffer and more violent versus Vader than any other opponent.
Yep. Yeah, Sting's the answer for me. And what do you have for a grade, Chad?
So I give this one 4.5. It's I think it's for me it really teeters between 4.5 and 4.75. It's one again that as I get older I appreciate the compactness of it. It's violent, it's visceral feeling, and there's not much to knock at it. It's just, you know, like it's one of those weird things on the star rating side where there's not a lot of near falls really back and forth. So you kind of think like, well, that may not be as dramatic as some other matches, but I thought it told its story almost perfectly.
All right. Well, it was a lot of fun. Chad, I want to thank you for kicking off our new era with us, of course. And Scott, this was I think it's cool. I enjoyed it. Definitely different. But it's cool getting to check out a match. We hadn't watched it in a while. So good stuff. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another guest, another town. Be sure to check out everything right here on the North South Connection YouTube channel, as well as the PlayStation Wrestling feed and PlayStation YouTube feed as well. Follow us on all social media. We appreciate all of your support here in 2023. Looking forward to another year here on the old mothership. Till then, we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Everyone take care.
Peace.